From Chesapeake, Virginia, WHKT presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
Thank you very much, Joe Daniel. On this November 15th, we are live as always. Sports Scene is an interview show each Wednesday from 12 to 1. Also watch sports highlights on nnpstv.com. Tell your friends about gjbtv.com and click the YouTube link on the homepage for archived audio and video. Twitter at Greg Bick. That's GREGBIC. You can see the rest of my Twitter handles on gjbtv.com in the contact section. Thank you to our military. It was great working with the NFL and Fox this past Sunday with the Vikings-Redskins game. The Vikings were victorious. Guest lineup presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. Sponsors on gjbtv.com. Marketplace sponsors and Hampton Roads onlinemall.com. Phone line presented by Spaghetti Eddie's. Show presented by HRSMHOF.com, where you can see the 2018 inaugural class on the recipients section. Congratulations to all five. It was great chatting with Jeff Jones last week. November football as good as it gets. Thanksgiving, hard to believe, 8 days away. Great interviews, business segments, highlights, commentary, what teased me off. Thank you for making the habit to listen to Sports Scene Weekly, and we love our regulars, newcomers, and tourists. Stay tuned for more Sports Scene after these messages.
Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
All right, welcome back live right here in Sports Scene on this November 15th. As many of you know that I went to George Mason, graduated in 1989, and a person I worked with very closely back then was Bob Gotkin. And I always asked Bob, who's that Georgetown broadcaster that's name sounds like you? And he said, of course, it was Rich Chvotkin, of course, who's been with the Georgetown Hoyas since the mid-'70s. And, of course, I've seen him at several events over the last several decades working for CBS and Fox. And, of course, Georgetown was one of the first teams that opened up then, the Patriot Center, back in the mid-'80s. Let's welcome Rich Chvotkin. How are you, my friend?
How are you? Boy, that brings back memories about Bob Gotkin. And I've always enjoyed Bob's broadcast, especially when he was doing GW games way back when I first started in the mid-'70s.
Right, of course.
How you doing? And great win for Patrick Ewing the other day. Everybody associated with Georgetown basketball and Patrick Ewing was very, very pleased that he got his first victory.
Absolutely. And, you know, you talk about Georgetown, you know this better than anybody. They rarely make changes as far as basketball or a lot of sports. You've been with the program since the mid-'70s. You look at one of your assistant ADs just recently retired. He's been with the program since the 60s. John Thompson's presence is still there. You look at Esherick and then his son, of course, who replaced him. So they handle that, Rich, about as good as you can be without a whole lot of PR drama.
Well, that's interesting that you said that because obviously with Coach Thompson, then of course his son, Craig Esherick, who played for Coach Thompson, and then Patrick Ewing, who played for Coach Thompson. So they kept it in the family, and the family responded. Patrick got a very good win. The fans were energized. They had a lot of great people in the building, including Michael Jordan. Dikembe Mutombo came back, Alonzo Mourning, Charles Smith, Otto Porter obviously there because, you know, he's right there with the Wizards. So they had a fine entourage to welcome Patrick back home, quote.
And I think that's what it does. Winning cures everything. You had to get that first game out of the way, even though it was a non-conference game. But we're well into November basketball. It's still kind of early because football kind of shadows it. But with a presence like Patrick Ewing back, it's going to be an event pretty much every time Georgetown plays.
Well, exactly, because, you know, Patrick is a legend. You know, in other words, no matter who you bring in to recruit, when you take a look at Patrick Ewing, the stature, what he brought to Georgetown, 3 Final Fours. You know, I tell the story, and I keep telling you this because I think this is just so apropos. When Ewing got recruited, I went to Gary Williams. We played American University the next night or the night after, and I went to Gary and I said, Gary, what do you think? He said, look, you go home, you tell your wife to take the next 4 marches on the calendar and X them out because you'll be going to the NCAA. And 3 of those 4 years, they went to the NCAA championship game. So Gary was 100% right way back when Patrick Ewing was first recruited. So, you know, he's been a legend, one of the top 50 to ever play the game in the NBA. ranks and just a warrior. And I'm so glad for him that he got his first victory. And they did it with style. They did it his way. They up-tempoed, they forced pressure, they got turnovers, they shot the 3-ball, and the two guys that had to come through, Jesse Govan and Marcus Derrickson, 40 between them, 15 rebounds for Jesse Govan, 8 rebounds for Derrickson. So you combine 40 points, 23 rebounds, a fistful of blocks and steals. They're going to have to be the mainstays. They're going to carry this team like Pekin Fire did last year.
Yeah, talking to Rich Chvotkin, the voice of Georgetown, who just a couple of years ago called your 1,300th game. How many games have you called overall since the 70s?
Well, this is probably going on close to 1,500 now, so I'm getting up there. I'm one of probably 4 or 5 left that have done 40 years with their respective schools and had the longevity. But you know what that means, Greg? You're getting old.
Yeah.
In fact, Ewing told me last year, he said, when you do my grandson, I broadcast his games, I did his son, Patrick Ewing Jr., he said, when you get to my grandson, which is 16 more years, he's 2, he said, then you got a good career.
Absolutely. And of course, the voice of Duke just recently retired as well. So, yeah, there's not many left from the 70s, that's for sure.
No, there aren't. In fact, Maury Mannies, who used to do Ball State, he did 50 years, Greg, and believe it or not, he said he did some games when he could barely breathe or walk. In fact, he said the various operations that he used to do around the games so they wouldn't miss any games. But he did football, basketball, baseball. So, to do 50 years is quite an accomplishment. You have to have your health. You have to, be able to function on all cylinders. And you have to have the fan support. You just can't do this in isolation, of course.
Yeah, I've been doing the high school football games here for 27 years, and that's long enough, and then the networks and everything else. It all adds up. But I remember another interesting story at a GW game in the 80s. Jack Fleming was then the voice of West Virginia.
West Virginia, right, that's right.
And he had every pill on that table, Rich, as you could imagine, to help him get through the broadcast.
Well, it's amazing. As you get a little older, Greg, look, I've changed my glasses. My hair's getting grayer. You don't walk as fast. You don't have as much pep. But, if you still have the passion for the game, you get through it.
Absolutely.
I still prepare like it was game one. Yeah.
Right. The Big East has changed, but Rich Chvotkin has been the same. You look at Ewing, Mourning, Mutombo, Michael Jackson, Ed Hopkins, some of the traditional names over at Georgetown. You called so many great games at the McDonough Arena. It was a treat back in 2014 to see you guys play West Virginia there. It was so special, and we're not talking that long ago, still having a game at McDonough. With Ewing there would have been really special, too.
Well, that would have been. McDonough was kind of the precursor for all of this. And, when John Constant came in the 72-73 season, that was the hilltop. That was basically Georgetown's home court. All those schools had those small arenas that we used to go to. I remember when I first started, we used to play GW at Fort Myer. We used to go up to St. Bonaventure and play up there, in the O'Reilly Center. And we used to go to, play schools that had real small arenas. Rarely did you ever go to a big arena. In fact, the biggest that I did, my first away game, was in Rochester, at the old Rochester War Memorial, which was not that big. And then, of course, when Dave Gavitt came to head the Big East, he said, basically, we're going to take our program to the big arenas. And I think that was the precursor to getting teams to play in the big arenas. And then the Carrier Dome came, and, the rest is history. But, yeah, in the earlier years, that McDonough Arena was a special place for everybody. It was like the Cameron Indoor Stadium for Georgetown.
Tell the fans who might not know, who are not familiar with D.C. like you and I are, about the whole Exorcist movie at Georgetown, the campus. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The Exorcist, the steps are right at the edge of the Georgetown campus at the end of Prospect Street, and the steps come right down to basically Canal Road and M Street. And, everybody talks about, how the Exorcist that helped Georgetown become famous. Well, I think Georgetown notoriety came well before then and well after the Exorcist. But it was quite an interesting treat to have the steps right there at the edge of campus. In fact, even to this day, when I come over Key Bridge, if I'm over visiting my daughter in Arlington and I go by and I make that left from Key Bridge onto Canal Road to go out to my home, I always look at those Exorcist steps, and, it does bring back memories. Of course it does. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about, before we talk about this year's team, how many flagship stations, Rich, you would probably know this better than anybody, have you been on in the D.C. area? I know at one time you were on WWDC way back in the day, and, of course, ESPN 980, but how many flagship stations originated Georgetown basketball since 74, 75? Well,
we probably had 6 or 7. As you said, in 1981, 1982, when Ewing came, I got a call from WWDC, and they said, we're interested in carrying your games. I said, look, hang up the phone. Here's the program director's name over at WWDC. Go get this thing laid on because people were very interested. We started with WOOK. When I first started, Greg, I was named the voice of the Hoyas after making some tapes at the end of the 73-74 season. They said, okay, Rich, congratulations. You're the voice of the Hoyas. Coach Thompson, athletic director Frank Lienzo, and Fran Connors, then the sports information director. They said, welcome, you're the voice of the Hoyas. But here's the problem. We have no radio station. We have no advertising. So good luck. So my then wife-to-be, we went out and sold advertising throughout the city of Washington. We were able to get on WOOK, and they were on the station for the first year. Then they didn't renew for the second year, so we went to WEAM in Arlington. I don't know whether you remember them. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we were on another station in Arlington, and then we went to WINX, which was over in Locksville. And then WWDC came on. But it was touch and go. In fact, when I got WEAM, it was already into almost November of that year that we got WEAM. And we had no station because WOOK didn't renew. And I'll tell you the story. I was just sitting in my bathroom on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and I was just thumbing through the yellow pages, Greg, and I came on WEAM. But this is 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. And I picked up the phone, I called the station, and luckily somebody answered. And he said, I'm the engineer of the station. I told him who I was, what I was concerned about. He said, come on over. And that's how, just a cold call, Greg, and we got on the air. And then, of course, we were on a few more stations before WWDC took over in 81, 82. And then when Clear Channel came in 99, and then it went over to ESPN, and we've been on 106.7 The Fan and 99.1 over the last couple seasons.
Well, yeah,
go ahead.
And so much has changed, too, Rich, as we're talking to Rich Chvotkin, the voice of the Georgetown Hoyas from the Big East, that people can hear on so many different platforms as far as the Internet is concerned, too.
Well, that's good. You know, the landscape has changed so much, Greg. As you well know, everything is on TV for the most part now. You can get the games on the Internet with the streaming. So, you know, the old radio stations where you used to have to drive around in your car to get the games, it's interesting. In fact, I'll tell you a cute story that, and I don't mind saying this because, you know, this is common knowledge. George Tennant, who's the director of the CIA, we played Penn State years ago up in University Park at the start of the season, and he was good friends with Coach Esherick. And what happened was he was driving around. He was called into the CIA in Langley, and he was driving around, and what happened was that the game went overtime. So he told the driver, keep driving around, because if you go into the tunnel, you won't hear the game. So you had to wait there for overtime.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I remember having to call from George Mason when Charlie Slows was doing the Bullets and having to call 432-1260 just to hear it. So things have really changed over the years for audio and video for sure. Let me ask you, as I do a lot of TV games, as you know, over the years, were you surprised when you saw the schedule this year that the lack of big CBS, the lack of big Fox, maybe one or two max, most of the games are, you know, either not on or on CBS Sports Network or FS1. Were you surprised at, considering Ewing's stature, or because of Georgetown's been down for the last few years? Yeah,
no, I think I was just surprised. Sometimes it's just the way things, shake out. But I was surprised. I thought they might have gotten a few more games on, with Ewing. Patrick Ewing is a legend. He presents so well. He's got a great work ethic. He's got great integrity. I mean, he is a showman in himself. And I think he's going to, do a great job in this program. And you'll see Georgetown probably on TV, in terms of the big networks a lot more than just Fox. That's, I think, the hope that everybody has. Yeah,
probably more so in the future. That's after this year. No bitterness, you think, for Big John at all? I mean, that was his son. That's his flesh and blood.
Well, it was a sad situation that JT3, had to be let go. John's still very much involved in the program. Came to the last ball game. I'm sure he's going to come to a lot of the games. He and Ewing, obviously, if it wasn't for Patrick Ewing going to 3 Final Fours, who knows what would have happened to the program in terms of the legendary Georgetown program, although they were good before Ewing. People don't realize this, Greg. When they had Durham Shelton and Eric Floyd, they had as good a team as anybody in the country. And unfortunately, they lost to that game to Iowa in the Spectrum in Philadelphia. That team was tremendous. And then, of course, Ewing came and then put them on the map again. And they were good after Ewing. So, in other words, it wasn't just Patrick Ewing, although he led them to 3 Final Fours. That was a rarity. But they've been good prior. They've been good after, and hopefully they'll continue to be good in the future.
Right. I even thought Patrick's sophomore year when he had, Wingate and Williams, I mean, they were an elite basketball team. They didn't make the Final Four that year, but they were an elite team.
I know. They're well, the Keith Lee and William Bedford and the boys beat them. Yeah, that was the – well, look, when you take and then Lee went to the Final Four 2 years later and lost to Villanova. So figure that out, right? I mean, that was legendary teams there. You know what? You had Lee, Bedford, and of course you had Mullen from St. John's, and then you had Wayman Tisdale. And that group, I mean, you had some, Greg, when you look at the early 80s, the teams that played in those Final Fours were unbelievable, the talents that they had. And of course, Ewing went 3 times. But they were Olajuwon in Houston. I mean, you just look at the talent. Louisville, who they had in the 80s, unbelievable. The McRae guys and basically, the Doctors of Duncan's team, with Darryl Griffiths. So that was a legend that I don't think those times that'll ever be replicated. I think the one and dones or the 2 year guys, you'll never see that again.
Yeah, the coaches stayed for a long time.
Right.
Patino, of course, is no longer, but you look at Denny Crum and so many. Let me ask you about this year's team. 1-0 so far. They've got a game tonight. Let's talk about this team. And these are mostly young John's players. Of course, it'll evolve more in the future with Patrick's players. But how far can this team go? Have you seen a different attitude already?
Well, I think you have a different work ethic that you might see throughout the course of the year. I think John wants to up-tempo. He wants to get out, shoot the 3-ball. He wants to get out and defend the 3-point line, which they're going to have to do because a lot of these schools, when you don't have the bigs inside, you're going to have to do it with the 3-ball. Mount St. Mary's averages about 35 threes a game. So, they're going to have to challenge the 3-point line. But Patrick's philosophy is up-tempo, get out in transition, and spread the floor, put pressure defense on, try to turn you over, much like the NBA teams do. I mean, obviously, you don't coach in the NBA for 15 years like Patrick did with guys like Kemba Walker and, just observing the way Golden State plays their games. It's a different style today, Greg, than it was years ago. But what's not different is the importance of rebounding the basketball, taking care of the basketball, and I think the philosophy has changed that you got to play good defense and stay out of foul trouble. I think one thing that could hurt the Warriors this year is getting in foul trouble. They don't have a deep bench. They're going to have to keep the guys on the floor. Last game, Derrickson and Govan were on the floor over 30 minutes apiece. So you're going to need those guys to step up and stay on the floor.
Yeah, I really like Govan. He's really an elite player. We're talking to Rich Chvotkin, the voice of the Georgetown Hoyas since the 70s. Am I missing anything here? McDonough Arena, Capitol Center at the time, Verizon Center. Where else have y'all played home games at?
Well, that was pretty much it. We started in McDonough Arena. We even played a game one time at D.C. Armory against Maryland. Sure. And but pretty much those have been the venues. We went to Cap Center back in when Ewing first came, and then started in '97 at Verizon Center, which is now called Capital One Arena. And who knows what may come later down the road.
So much lineage to the past, the Georgetown rivalry. Of course, Lefty lives here in Virginia Beach now. And, of course, Alonzo Mourning and Iverson are right here from this area code. They meant so much to Georgetown's program. Iverson only played a couple of years at Georgetown.
Yeah, I know. And, in fact, I love what they call the 757 area.
Yeah.
The Tidewater area that has so many great players. In fact, Cameron Bacote, down that way is going to be playing the Maryland Eastern Show. We played them in a couple of days.
Right.
So it'll be interesting, Greg. We're all looking forward to tonight's game. Looking forward to the rest of the season. We have an away game with Richmond next weekend, and it should be fun for Patrick. But everybody's just pleased that he got game number 1 under his belt. Good crowd on hand, and hopefully brighter things will continue.
Let me ask you before we let you go, so much competition in the D.C. dollar. Not only do you have Maryland and George Mason and Georgetown and, of course, American University and GW, all pretty solid teams, all of them are. But then you look at the Wizards, the Caps, the Orioles, the Nationals, the Redskins, the Ravens, and, of course,
what you're saying, Greg, is you have a lot of entities that are trying to fill their arenas and market their teams. Look, there's only 7 nights in a week. There's only so much time you have to go to sports events. It does spread it around. I remember years ago when there was just 1 or 2 teams here, and it was so much easier. But now you have all this stuff, and everybody's trying to market their program and market their leagues. They're all teams in different leagues. Mm-hmm. So you have so much competition for the dollar. But one of the things that has to happen, though, Greg, for all these schools, they have to get their student body behind them. GW, Georgetown, AU, all these teams, George Mason. You have to get your students behind you. You have to get your alumni behind you. And then whatever else you can bring in from the crowd, I think is gravy. But if you don't have your own fan support of your student body and your alumni, it's really going to be hard.
You're exactly right. And not to mention, too, your kids can tell you this, too, Rich. The biggest competition for people under 30 is that iPhone. They're more
Exactly.
they're more entertained by that.
Absolutely. And in fact, when I talk to my kids, I say, let me go check the score. They say, here, punch it up on the iPhone. Instantaneous information. That's exactly right. You don't have to go to games anymore. In fact, that's really that whole internet thing, Greg. Just the social media the way it is today, you get instant. When you look on people's Twitter, they basically give you blow by blow, minute by minute. You don't have to go to games. You know exactly what's going on.
Right.
So it changed the whole landscape of the game. But I still say to this day, there's nothing like being at a live event, and there's nothing like hearing like the old school on the radio. Right.
Absolutely. And your last thing too is, as far as you mentioned all the information. There's just so much way. There's so many ways to consume that information, and there's something to be said. Are you a day person or a night person? Because you do a lot of games both during the day and at night. What do you prefer?
Yeah, I like them both, Greg. I like the early night games. Then you have your nights free, and I like the day games because it's just fun. That's something to do during the day.
Right.
In fact, I'll tell you two stories, speaking of day and night games. So we played out in Sacramento a number of years ago in the tournament, and at the end of the game, it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I had my boys with me, and I said to the guy who ran the tournament, I said, where does a guy like me go after the game tonight, for a drink or to get something to eat? He said, guys like you go to bed.
That's a good one.
Yeah, which tells you that, okay, you what you should do, don't worry about going out, just go to bed.
Well, 74-75 was your first season, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, folks, don't go to bed yet. Rich Chvotkin hasn't gone to bed. All the best to you, my friend, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Always a pleasure, Greg. Anytime, feel free, and keep up the great work down there in the 757 area code.
Thank you, my friend. Safe travels. Very good.
Thanks, Greg. Good talking to you.
You too,
Bye-bye
Rich.
now.
All right, folks, that's one of the living legends, Rich Chvotkin, the voice of Georgetown. Joe Daniel, he's been at his job, and he's in the psychology business, too. This is only side work since 1974-75, home and away for Georgetown games.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, just the dedication, and you can tell that he obviously has a passion for it. And like you said, just to do it part-time, there's obvious an immense amount of love and passion for what he does.
Especially the road trips, too, as well. And all the word change, people don't like change that often as well. So Panera, all items 100% clean. They deliver catering. Take advantage of the rapid pickup option. Great soups, sandwiches, salads, bagels right there at 6255 College Drive in Suffolk in the Harborview section. Go by and see Brian and the great staff at 483-3670 is their phone number. Cookies, desserts, beverages as well. PaneraBread.com, food as it should be. Brian and the company will take good care of you in Harborview. The news continues. More Sports Scene after this.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Email bicogb@hotmail.com. Now back to Greg Bicouvaris in the Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com studios. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com.
And our good friends at Sakura Japanese Restaurant, go by and see Jasmine and the great staff. Sushi bar, takeout, dine-in. They deliver via orderup.com in the Walmart Way Crossing, 1437 Sam's Drive in Chesapeake. Give them a call at 410-4577 for excellent Asian food as well. This is Highlights. Hope you enjoyed Rich Chvotkin, the voice of the Georgetown Hoyas since 74-75 on the radio. GJBTV.com. Click the YouTube link for archive shows, audio and video. Save the date each Wednesday for Sports Scene from 12 to 1, live right here on 1650 AM, 92.5 FM, and tunein.com by typing WHKT to listen on your phone or your computer. Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com. Browse, shop, visit, bookmark it as well. And of course, the college football playoffs, they just announced them again. The top six: Alabama's number 1, Clemson's 2, Miami's 3, Oklahoma's 4, Wisconsin's 5, Auburn 6. Still a lot of football left to be played. Joe Daniel, question of the day presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. Do you prefer busy weekends or just kicking back with the family with no plans at all?
Probably just kicking back. That sounds pretty relaxing. I typically work every Saturday, so whenever I do have a weekend, yeah, absolutely would love to just kick back. But my wife is one of those where she loves the plan. She wants to wake up at 7:30 in the morning, be out the door by 8, and go hiking, do something. She's one of those planners. She likes to always stay active and be outside in nature, and I'm cool with that. But for me, I typically just like to kick back. If something comes up in the moment, let's do it. But I'm not a planner like she is, so just chilling for me on the weekend.
It's really. I mean, I worked this past weekend. I had a high school football game Friday, Redskins Sunday. And Saturday was a day off. It really is just nice to have days off. You need money, though, to work and to live.
Exactly.
Of course, so it's a two-way street.
And then you spend it all on Saturday.
Exactly. Or the next day or Monday. Then you have to recover on Monday. There's nothing like that. Buffalo Wild Wings, lunch, dinner, appetizers, mozzarella sticks, salads, boneless traditional wings, burgers, wraps, sandwiches, tenders, macs. It's all good. Beverages, desserts, kids menu, games on TV, wings, beer, and sports. Go by and see Paul and the great staff of Buffalo Wild Wings in Newport News at 12150 Jefferson Avenue. Watch the NFL, watch college football, watch college basketball, and the NBA at Buffalo Wild Wings in Newport News, Virginia as well. Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us. Hope you enjoyed Rich Chvotkin of the Georgetown Hoyas in the Big East, still trolling along right there with Patrick Ewing now as the head basketball coach. I believe we have Brian Parsons on from Wavy TV 10, Fox 43. How are you, my friend?
Greg, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Very good. First of all, before we start the interview, condolences to your brother Tim. We all cared for Tim a great deal. I had a chance to work with him, and his memory will always be eternal.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. It's been a tough time, but we got to soldier on.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a great family and support, as you well know, too. Before we start interview two, congratulations to Bruce Rader in the Hampton Roads Sports Media Hall of Fame, class of 2018. That'll be a big deal next spring at Langley Speedway.
Yeah, that's quite an honor for Bruce. Well-deserved. I mean, when you look at the longevity that he's done in this market with 4+ decades of covering everything from the Olympics in Athens to high school football to Super Bowls to the World Series to the Redskins to you name it. I mean, he's seen it all and he's done it all, and it's definitely an honor for Bruce.
And I just want to say this, too, before we start with Brian, that we're going to have – this year we had 8 names on the ballot. We selected 5. Everybody loved who we selected. We had a minority. We had a female. We had great, great people on the first ballot like Carol Hudson and Jim Dusabella, the late Mike Minium, Jennifer Williams, a pioneer at the Daily Press, and, of course, Carol Hudson. So we're going to have 15 names on the ballot from now on and still select 5. But by the time the next 10 years roll on, anybody in media that's worthy will be in that Hall of Fame the way it should be, all-inclusive, no good old boy network, no branding, nothing like that, just deserving, well-deserved men and women. All right, let's get right to business here. Old Dominion football, they've dug themselves a little bit of a hole. It's going to be tough to win the next 2 games, especially the last game of the season. Brian, your thoughts?
Well, we thought it was a lost season, right? Okay, I mean, when they lost 6 games in a row, 4 of them by 30 or more points in each game, that's unbelievable. They were getting blown out. But when you look back on it, I mean, okay, so North Carolina, they lost that game. They lost to Virginia Tech. They lost to Florida Atlantic, and then they lost to Marshall big. Those were the 30-point losses. Looking back, FAU is steamrolling through Conference USA, and they're doing to the rest of the league what they did to Old Dominion with Lane Kiffin as the head coach, who has miraculously turned them around in one season. Okay, so that's FAU has done a phenomenal job. Lane Kiffin is a legit head coach, and he'll probably be somewhere in a Power 5 school next year. So then they lose a couple of close ones to Western Kentucky and North Texas. The freshman quarterback, who was 17 at the time, threw late interceptions, game-changing interceptions that ended up in Old Dominion blew fourth-quarter leads in those games. Well, then they come back with a 6-0 shutout win over Charlotte. Not a beautiful game by any means. And then the signature win of the season, a road win against Butch Davis at Florida International, a team that's going to a bowl game. So they positioned themselves to defeat Rice, which they're going to be favored to defeat Rice on Saturday in the home finale at SB Ballard Stadium. And then, for all the marbles possibly, Middle Tennessee on the road with another chance to go to a bowl game. Nobody would have expected that when they were 2-6 and staring at that 6-game losing streak. But the freshman quarterback, Stephen Williams, has come along. He's improved. One of his big things was turning the ball over. One of his big things was underthrowing on the deep ball, which would lead to interceptions. And he's kind of corrected those things. And Bobby Wilder has said that he's going to be special, and he's taken his lumps with him. When he pulled that red shirt off of him against North Carolina, he made his bed to lay in, and he's going to stick with this kid through thick and thin, and he's done that. And who knows, maybe they'll go 6-6 and go to a bowl game. Nobody would have expected that. And they've had a serious amount of injuries, too. Let's keep that in mind.
And let's take it a step further. Could imagine them going 6-6 and winning their bowl game after that bad losing streak, possibly winning 7 games. I think the caveat, though, will be the Middle Tennessee game. That'll be very difficult, probably the last game of the year, but crazier things have happened.
Well, the crazy thing, Middle Tennessee, Old Dominion's snake-bitten with Middle Tennessee. They've never beat them in basketball. They've never beat them in football since joining Conference USA. They've beat them in the conference championship game in basketball, men and women. So it'd be nice for the Old Dominion fans. I'm sure they'd love to stick it to Middle Tennessee to get to a bowl game.
Well, let's switch gears to Jeff Jones. He's already started off 2-0, and of course they're going to take on Temple in Charleston.
Yeah, that's a good start to the ODU men. They lose some key players, but they're going to be smaller. They're going to be smaller this year. They're going to move it up and down the court a little bit, so they say. Damont Caver, the point guard, he's all team first conference, I believe, and I think it's time to see B.J. Stitz step out of his shell. He closed out big against James Madison the other night, and it's going to be interesting to see him develop. Because B.J. Sith is the transfer from UVA. Brandon Sith, the senior, the bigger guy, is the transfer from East Carolina. So, and of course, Bryant Sith is the assistant coach on the team. So it's a family affair.
Yeah, once they get past these Stith brothers, they're going to have to definitely recruit a lot of players because those two have really taken up a lot of great time, talent, and treasure over the years. Let me ask you this, because you're very well connected with Old Dominion, whether as a Wavy or as a student, and of course a lot of your family members have gone to games over the years. Are you surprised by all the negative posts on Facebook and when they were losing, and the people still leaving at halftime? Does that irk you a little bit? Because you're on the field a lot during the games.
Well, the people on Facebook, I couldn't care less about that. That just comes with the territory, Everybody's a silent assassin when it comes to the keyboard. And but as far as leaving the games early, I think it's kind of been that way for a few years at Old Dominion. I mean, a lot of it is a social event for a lot of people. They want to tailgate, they want to be seen, they want to, maybe they have a little too much too fast, and the next thing they're going to have to leave at halftime to go home and sleep it off. But I mean, I think if you look at the throughout college athletics, you see that at a lot of games. I think it's more rampant than you think. Even at the big time schools, people not staying throughout the entire game. I've heard Nick Saban complaining about that down at the University of Alabama. They're the number one team in the country, so I think it kind of happens everywhere. I don't know if it's attention deficit disorder in today's age. With the people connected to their phones. There's a big college football game coming up on TV. They want to see. They've gotten their fix. They've seen a half. They've had their tailgating. They want to go home. We have short attention spans these days, Greg. Not like it used to be, old timer.
You're exactly right, my friend. And of course, speaking of which, we mentioned bowls, and of course, Old Dominion went to a bowl last year. That UVA and Tech are definitely going to go to a bowl. Brian, how nice is that? That this game will finally be relevant next week when Virginia and Virginia Tech play each other as well on primetime on ESPN on a Friday night.
It's so relevant that they pushed that game to prime time. When was the last time UVA and Tech played at an 8 o'clock kickoff? It's going to be pretty impressive. Scott Stadium should be electric. It would be nice to see them fill up Scott Stadium, something they haven't really done lately. But it's a slow build with Bronco Mendenhall. He's building his philosophy and building his brand and trying to get his players in. I know he had to get a lot of graduate transfers to come in, which is not the UVA way, so to speak. But I'm very happy for UVA. I'm very happy for the players that stuck through it with the lean times with Mike London and the tough year last year, the rebuild under Bronco, and they've had some big wins this year. They beat Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. Georgia Tech kind of took it to Virginia Tech, but UVA has a tough one this weekend when they play the University of Miami. That could be a tough one.
Right. Mendenhall got his 6 wins early, so he's got the bowl out of his system. Now, it'll be great if he gets 2 more wins and beat especially Miami and Tech, but it's not going to be easy playing either one of those teams who are perennial powers. But like we said, at least Virginia is somewhat relevant again. The fans aren't coming out like they used to be, but like Brian said, it'll take a few years too. All right, the Redskins are really in a tough situation. Got a nice win over Seattle on the road, played flat against the Vikings for the most part. I don't get playing flat at home. I was there. No energy in the crowd. You would think that the season was coming to an end. Now, who do they get to play? One of the hottest teams in the NFL, Brian, on the road in the Saints.
Well, it's easy to play flat at home when 30% of the fans are wearing purple or are wearing the colors of the opposing team. I don't know what's going on up there with that, but the Skins are a weird team. That game turned in the end of the second quarter when the Vikings scored late in the half, and then Kirk Cousins threw that inexplicable interception that led to 7 points. The Vikings got the ball at the start the second half, and they scored a touchdown. So that was a 21-point swing there. I think they are what they are. I mean, I said it before the year. I think they're anywhere in that range of between 7-9 and 9-7, and that's what they are. And they win some, they lose some. I mean, I think Cousins is a good quarterback, but he's no Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees, so let's not get carried away here. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs because if you look around the NFC overall from top to bottom is better than the AFC. There's going to be some good teams in the NFC that do not make the playoffs. You're probably going to get both wild cards, possibly from the AFC South, when you're looking at Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans. All 3 of those teams getting in. The division winner, and then the 2 wild cards. So, I mean, Seattle is out there. You've got Dallas. You got the Redskins. There's going to be good teams that do not make the postseason. So the Redskins really need to string together some wins. They'll probably lose to the Saints, that being said. But the schedule's looking a lot easier in the second half of the season. They have the Giants twice. They have the Cowboys again without Ezekiel Elliott. They have the Broncos who are reeling. So there are definitely some winnable games for the Redskins second half of the season.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, you look at the teams that are just ahead of them. Even with a game ahead means a big deal. Like, the Falcons, the Lions, the Packers. The Packers without Aaron Rodgers are still 5-4. Then you look
at somebody good is not going to make the playoffs.
Right? Yeah, and the Seahawks are 6-3. So it'll be tough, especially I think if they lose to the Saints, which they probably will, and more likely. It'll be very difficult at 4-6 to climb out of that. I don't care if they have to play the Giants twice.
Yeah, I almost think the Redskins fans are thinking, man, I wish they could have added another wild card. I know nobody else talked about that, but yeah, I mean, it's the Skins. They're kind of hovering in that 500 range, and it's I don't know what it takes to get out of that. I'd like to see a more balanced attack with the run. I think Jay Gruden abandoned the run a lot, and because when it works. It really, really, really works. But then he gets trigger happy, and then you put the ball in Cousins' hands, and you run into the issues where they have to settle for 3 points instead of getting into the end zone, which is a carryover from last year. It's to come out flat against the Vikings after what they did against Seattle was a huge disappointment.
Yeah, no running game at all, of course. It's been a struggle all year. D'Angelo Hall from this area is kind of old and hurt now. I'll be surprised if he comes back next year. It'll be a pleasant surprise if he does, but you got to wonder how many more years he's got left. Go ahead and plug the Sports Wrap on Fox 43 as well as your great sports on Wavy.
Well, we have the Fox 43 Sports Wrap on Fox 43 at 10:45, a 15-minute local sports show every night. There is a caveat, though. Not every night during the fall, because on Thursday nights at 10:45 on Fox 43, it's the Old Dominion football show. Friday nights at 10:30 on Fox 43, our 30-minute Redskins show, the Washington Huddle, that actually airs in 4 markets throughout the state of Virginia and Maryland. That was with Bruce Rader, and we have a co-host every week. We have a correspondent from D.C. I have a segment. Nathan Epstein has a segment. We have a weather segment with Ashley Baylor. They give you a game day forecast. That was a daunting task that was given to us this year, but we've we've really embraced it, and we've had a great time doing the Washington Huddle every week, a 30-minute Redskins show every single week. And of course, Wavy TV 10 at 6:20 and 11:20 with Bruce Monday through Friday, and reports from Nathan Epstein and myself.
All right, leave us with your Twitter handle.
It is at BPAR73. Just search Brian Parsons, and you'll see my mug, and you'll find it.
Very good. Brian, all the best to you, my friend. Keep up the good work, and we will talk to you very soon, my friend.
Great. Thank you for having me on, Greg.
My pleasure. Brian Parsons right there from Wavy TV 10, Fox 43. I want to thank our good friends at Little Tokyo Buffet as well. Hibachi, noodle soup, sushi bar, and buffet bar. Give them a call at 325-8286. Right there in Hampton, brand new, 49 West Mercury Boulevard. Lunch and dinner 7 days a week. We'll take a short break. We'll come back after these messages.
You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
All right, welcome back to Sports Scene live right here on 1650 AM, 92.5 FM, tunein.com. Type in WHKT to listen to your phone or your computer. Subscribe to my YouTube channel as well by going to gjbtv.com, hitting the YouTube link. I want to thank our good friends at Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. Mike and the staff have a great, spacious dining area for lunch and dinner. Excellent bar. Watch the games on TV. Great burgers, steaks, soups, salads. Appetizers, seafood, pasta sounds great during the fall and the winter. Chicken, ribs, chops, appetizers, desserts, beverages, dine-in or carry-out. Give them a call at 523-4832. Open 7 days a week right now for lunch and dinner at 1255 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach. Let's get to What Tees Me Off.
What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
So one of our listeners just texted me and saying, it's Halloween's over a few weeks ago. That was from a movie. That had nothing to do with Halloween. But if you guessed the movie, young lady, maybe you might win a prize. Also want to thank our good friends at CP Shuckers, local tradition as well. Shore Drive, Pacific Avenue. People love their delicious food, great appetizers, steak bites, sandwiches, burgers, specials, all the games on TV. Matt, Mark, Chef Leon, and the great crew at cpshuckers.com for lunch, dinner, and late night as well. All right, what teased me off, Joe Daniel? When you first walk into a business and they have that foul stench when you walk in.
A smell of like dirty floors being masked with bleach and Lysol.
Or like all these different food flavorings melted together.
Yeah.
And that stench is just clouding the air. So, of course, what teased me off, that foul stench when you first walk in.
It leaves a bad impression. Like it sets the tone for your whole dining experience, having a bad smell coming at a food, at a restaurant.
Right, because it just could have been spoiled food. It could have been just sauce alone has a bad smell. Then you wonder about the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Then you wonder about the waitress. Then you wonder about the kitchen. It just starts making you wonder. What else teased me off? How you are greeted when you first walk into a door. Very important.
Yes, absolutely. I actually just went to a restaurant the other night, and the hostess was there, and she's supposed to be like friendly smile, greeting. She was leaning on the podium with her phone in her hand and barely looked up when I came walking through the door and just said, "Welcome." And that's it. Thank you very much. And I don't even think when I left, she was talking to somebody else, and she didn't stop her conversation to even say, "Hey, thanks for joining us. Have a good evening." Nothing, no goodbye or anything like that. And it's just, it's not a huge deal. I'm not upset with it. It's just kind of, it's good to hear, and when it's not there, you notice it.
Right, but you're taking your time and your effort with your family's time to walk in that business, and they want your money. Hello, as well. How about know-it-alls? You know who they are. They know everything.
Yeah. I'm at TCC right now, and so some teachers are kind of know-it-alls, it seems. I was listening to a podcast also, some scientists using science and it turns out they pulled up an article, and it turned out to refute everything that he just said. But because he was a scientist saying, hey, science is saying this, he thought that he was right, and he was the know-it-all because he was the PhD scientist. It's very arrogant, very annoying.
Oh, look, we've even had requests here for Christmas and holiday music, for bumper music. We'll do that in December, but it's only November, thank goodness. Well, of course, we already hear them at Family Dollar and everywhere else they play the holiday music. How about this? People in a meeting who make it all about themselves. Oh, yeah, it's not about me, not about my friends who are getting awards, but it makes it about them when they speak up the loudest.
Yeah, absolutely. People who always try to take the spotlight. No matter what it is, they always try to interject, or one-uppers as well. Those are people that kind of upset me.
Or the last word.
Yeah, it just the one-up. You share a story with them, and they always have to say something else, but just a little bit better. Oh man, that was nothing compared to what I've been through, or something like that. Oh I just got into a car accident. Oh my gosh, like I got into a car accident and this happened to me, and it was so much worse than your scenario.
Right. How about powders? Powders, people pouting all the time.
Oh, powder. I thought you were talking like white powder, like talcum powder.
That's never good, too.
Yeah, people who are just, oh, woe is me. Very, get over
bad.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Bad management in any business. You never want to see bad management. People to try to tell you, who needs to be in a Hall of Fame when you start your own. The answer is start your own Hall of Fame. Put whoever you want to be in your own Hall of Fame. I don't know. I don't care. Of course, how about this? When you ask somebody for a favor and you've done nothing but favors for them all year long, but it's not convenient to them or not good for them, they forget about all the favors you've done for them all year.
Yeah. That whole, I owe you one. And when you try to redeem that owe you one, they're like, can't. Sorry, check back later.
How about this one? I mean, here it is. You take food at the grocery store, you go to a restaurant. I saw this guy yesterday literally getting a box of pizza, probably spent about $15 or $20 for, walking in a parking lot with his box of pizza in one hand and eating the pizza on the other hand. Like, can't you wait till you get home?
Sometimes you can. I mean, I've been the type to eat my pizza on my way home, just with a slice. I don't know how safe it is, but it tasted real good.
Yeah, we've all eaten in our car on the way home, but that was interesting. He was walking, eating his pizza, and holding the box at the same time. He had a smile on his face, so he seemed really happy.
Bet.
Yeah, all right. I want to thank our good friends at Craft Burger Bar, Jamie and the great crew at 1706 Mediterranean Avenue in Virginia Beach. Great appetizers like Kraft Chili, Fried House Pickles. Go by and see the great staff. They'll wait on you. The Wagyu burgers, the Coronado, the Greek, the pepper, the shroom, the sunrise. Excellent toppings, Carolina snap dogs, chicken sandwiches, salads, vegan burgers, home-cut fries, beer-battered onion rings. Like them on Facebook. Great place to dine, socialize. It's Craft Burger Bar at 1706 Mediterranean Avenue in Virginia Beach. So I want to thank our great crew today as well. Joe Daniel for producing, also archiving the show on YouTube as well. You can listen again on 1650 AM, 92.5 FM, tunein.com by typing in WHKT. Subscribe to the TuneIn channel for free. Also the YouTube channel as well. We'll be back next week with another great show. Great archives on YouTube as well. Congratulations again to the 5 winners in the Hampton Roads Sports Media Hall of Fame. Thank our wonderful guests today, Rich Chvotkin, the voice of Georgetown, and Brian Parsons from Wavy TV 10 and Fox 43. Happy Wednesday. I'm Greg Bicouvaris, and we'll talk to you soon.
That's all, folks.
AM 1650, WHKT Portsmouth, 92.5 FM, W223CT Norfolk. For your daily supply of news and talk, we are The Answer.